Stop what you are doing right now and check your coins. Because one small nickel from 1977, especially the no-mint mark Jefferson nickel, is creating huge buzz in the coin-collecting world. Some rare versions and high-grade examples have reportedly sold for massive amounts, like $72. Most people ignore this coin because it looks ordinary, but the real value is hidden in the details. In today's video, I will show you exactly what makes this coin so special, what signs you need to look for, and why collectors are paying insane money for it right now. First coin, a 1969D Jefferson nickel, might look like an ordinary 5-cent coin, but in today's collector market, certain rare conditions can turn it into a serious auction-level treasure. Most of these coins were minted in huge numbers at the Denver Mint, and the majority of circulated examples, especially those with heavy wear, scratches, or dusty surfaces, are still only worth face value. Even in lower circulated grades, like fine or very fine condition, they usually trade for just a few cents to a couple of dollars, depending on demand and eye appeal. But the real story begins when we move into higher grades and rare strike characteristics. In normal circulated condition, a 1969D nickel carries no special premium. It is made of the standard copper-nickel alloy and was produced for everyday commerce, meaning billions entered circulation. Because of that massive mintage, most collectors do not consider it rare. However, condition changes everything in numismatics. When a coin survives with strong detail, original luster, and minimal contact marks, even if it is technically circulated, it starts moving into collectible territory. Lightly circulated pieces in fine or very fine condition might bring only small premiums, but they still remain common coins overall. The major jump in value comes when a 1969D Jefferson nickel shows exceptional strike quality, especially the famous full steps detail on Monticello. This refers to the steps on the building on the reverse side being fully sharp and uninterrupted. Most coins from this year were weakly struck, so full-step examples are extremely rare. In standard market guides, MS65 examples might reach a few dozen dollars, while higher MS66 to MS67 grades can climb into the hundreds or even thousands, depending on eye appeal and certification. Apex. But there is one extreme variety that completely changes the story. The 1969D Full Steps Jefferson nickel in ultra-high grade. This is one of the most important modern Jefferson nickel rarities ever discovered. Only a single known certified example exists with Full Steps designation, and it has achieved legendary status among collectors. That exact coin sold at auction for around $33,600, proving how powerful rarity, strike quality, and condition can be when combined in one piece. Link. Now, when we talk about your described condition, circulated, scratched, dusty, and lower fine grade, it is important to stay realistic. Coins in that condition do not approach auction-level values on their own. A typical circulated 1969D nickel remains close to face value, often 5 to 25 cents in normal market trade, depending on condition. Even fine condition pieces are usually only worth small premiums unless they contain a verified mint error or exceptional strike quality. Link. However, the coin market is not only about grade. Errors and varieties can sometimes transform a common nickel into a high-value collectible. Things like double dies, repunched mint marks, or dramatic full steps preservation can increase demand significantly. That is why collectors always recommend carefully inspecting every detail under good lighting or magnification before dismissing a coin. In today's auction environment, the headline figure of $53,000 for a 1969D Jefferson nickel would represent an extreme rarity scenario, not a normal circulated coin. Such a price would only make sense if the coin is a certified top population example with extraordinary features such as a full steps MS-66 or MS-67 condition combined with rarity status, or a verified mint error that is recognized by major grading services like PCGS or NGC. Without those factors, circulated examples simply do not reach that level. So when evaluating a coin like this, collectors focus on three main points: strike quality, preservation, and rarity. Strike quality refers to how sharply the design elements are impressed, especially Monticello steps. Preservation looks at wear, scratches, and surface damage. Rarity includes mint errors, low population grades, or unique varieties. Only when all three align does the value rise dramatically into thousands or even tens of thousands. In conclusion, a circulated, scratched 1969D Jefferson nickel is still a fascinating piece of American coin history, but in most cases, it remains a low-value coin in the market today. Its true potential only appears when it crosses into rare grading territory or shows exceptional features that collectors actively compete for. That is why even common coins are always worth checking closely. You never know when a normal-looking nickel might reveal something extraordinary hidden in its details. Next coin. A 1971D Jefferson nickel is one of those coins that most people ignore in everyday change. Yet in the world of coin collecting, even a common 5-cent piece can become extremely interesting when rarity, condition, and special characteristics come together. Under normal circumstances, this coin was produced in massive quantities at the Denver Mint, meaning billions entered circulation. Because of that, most examples found today are common and usually worth only face value. Even in circulated condition, whether it shows scratches, dark surface spots, or overall worn details, it typically remains in the range of a few cents to maybe a small premium if the strike is decent and the coin has attractive eye appeal. In circulated fine or lower condition, especially with visible damage like surface dark spots, heavy wear on Jefferson's portrait, or weak Monticello details on the reverse, the coin does not usually attract strong collector demand. These types of imperfections are common for coins that have been in pocket change for decades. The metal surface of nickel coins can also naturally tone over time, creating dark patches or uneven coloration, which further reduces premium value in standard grading terms. In most real-world market conditions, such a coin would still circulate around its face value unless a rare variety or mint error is present. However, coin value is not always determined only by how a coin looks at first glance. In numismatics, the biggest price jumps happen when a coin contains something unusual, either a minting error, an extremely high-grade preservation state, or a rare variety that significantly reduces population numbers. This is where certain Jefferson nickels, even from common years like 1971D, can become highly desirable in specialist markets. For example, if a coin shows dramatic mint errors such as off-center strikes, double dies, or strong repunched mint marks, collectors may assign a much higher value depending on rarity and demand. But when we specifically talk about a circulated 1971D nickel with scratches, dark surface spots, and stepless or weak Monticello details, it is important to stay realistic. In standard grading systems used by professional services like PCGS or NGC, such a coin would fall into lower circulated grades. Coins in these categories are abundant, and their auction value remains extremely modest. Most examples trade for only a few cents to maybe a dollar or two if the coin has unusually good eye appeal despite wear. Now, sometimes online discussions or viral claims suggest extreme values like $48,000 for a coin similar to this. In the real auction market, such a figure would not apply to a normal circulated 1971D Jefferson nickel. A price like that would only be possible under very rare and specific conditions that are not present in a typical worn example. For instance, if the coin were a top population mint state specimen, graded MS67 or higher with full steps designation, or if it carried a major recognized mint error that is unique or extremely scarce, then the value could rise significantly. Even then, verified auction records for Jefferson nickels reaching tens of thousands are reserved for exceptional rarities, not circulated damaged coins. The important factor collectors always evaluate is eye appeal combined with rarity. Eye appeal includes how clean the surface is, how strong the strike appears, and how much original luster remains. In your described coin, the presence of scratches, dark spots, and weak step definition significantly reduces eye appeal. That automatically places it in a low collectible tier. Rarity, on the other hand, requires something unique, either very low surviving population in high grade or a documented minting anomaly. Without these, the coin remains a common circulation piece. Another point to understand is that Jefferson nickels from the early 1970s do not generally belong to the rare category in U.S. coinage. The U.S. Mint produced them in very high numbers due to everyday usage demand. That means collectors have an abundant supply available in all circulated grades. This abundance keeps their market value low unless something extraordinary is discovered. Still, the fascinating part of coin collecting is that every coin deserves a closer look. Even a worn 1971D nickel could potentially hide a small minting variation that is not obvious at first glance. Collectors often use magnification tools to inspect lettering, mint marks, and fine details on Monticello steps. While most coins turn out to be ordinary, the rare discoveries are what keep the hobby exciting. In conclusion, a circulated 1971D Jefferson nickel with scratches, dark surface spots, and weak detail is generally considered a common coin with very low market value in today's auction environment. The idea of a $48,000 valuation would only apply under extremely rare and verified conditions that do not match a typical worn example. However, the coin still represents an interesting piece of American mint history, and like all coins, it holds more value in education and curiosity than in its everyday monetary worth. Next coin. A 1989D Jefferson nickel is one of those modern-era coins that almost everyone has handled at some point, yet very few people ever look at closely enough to understand its real collecting potential. It was produced at the Denver Mint in extremely large numbers, intended for everyday circulation, which means billions of these coins entered pocket change across the United States. Because of this massive mintage, a standard 1989D nickel in circulated condition, especially one with scratches, surface marks, dull appearance, and weak design details, normally carries no significant premium in the coin market. In most cases, even a fine condition example is still worth only face value or maybe a few cents more, depending on overall eye appeal. When a coin is described as circulated with scratches, surface damage, and stepless Monticello details, it immediately places it in the lowest collectible tier. Jefferson nickels are judged very heavily on the reverse design of Monticello, where collectors look for strong, complete steps at the base of the building. If those steps are weak, faded, or not visible due to strike weakness or wear, the coin loses major numismatic value. In your described condition, the absence of strong step definition, combined with visible circulation damage, significantly reduces its desirability among serious collectors. The 1989D nickel does not belong to a rare date series in U.S. coinage. It was struck during a period when the U.S. Mint was producing coins efficiently and in large volumes to meet circulation demand. As a result, there is no natural scarcity in this date that would drive high base value. In circulated grades such as good, fine, or very fine, these coins are extremely common and can still be found in bulk coin rolls, old change jars, and bank-wrapped coin searches. However, coin valuation is not only about the date. The most important factors in determining whether a Jefferson nickel becomes valuable are condition rarity, minting errors, and special strike characteristics. Condition rarity refers to coins that survive in extremely high grades with minimal marks and full original luster. For a 1989D nickel, a coin would need to be in near-perfect mint state condition, often graded MS66 or higher, with strong strike quality and exceptional eye appeal to achieve meaningful collector value. Even then, typical market prices remain in the modest range unless something extraordinary is present. Another key factor is mint errors. Sometimes coins escape the mint with unusual characteristics, such as double dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or repunched mint marks. These errors can significantly increase value depending on how dramatic and rare they are. But for a common circulated 1989D nickel with scratches and wear without any verified mint error, the value remains very low in the standard numismatic market. Now, when we talk about extremely high figures like $58,000 being associated with a 1989D Jefferson nickel, it is important to understand what conditions would be required for such a valuation. In real-world auction markets, such a price would only be possible if the coin were a unique or extremely rare certified specimen. This could include a perfect top population mint state example with extraordinary full steps designation, combined with exceptional eye appeal and possibly a rare variety or mint error recognized by major grading companies like PCGS or NGC. Without those factors, a circulated, scratched, stepless coin cannot realistically reach that level of value. In normal circumstances, circulated 1989D Jefferson nickels trade very close to face value. Even in fine condition, they might only bring a small premium, often under $1. The reason is simple: supply far exceeds collector demand. Millions of these coins still exist in circulation or storage, making them easy to obtain. Collectors generally focus on higher-grade specimens or rare varieties, rather than worn examples with damage. Surface condition plays a very important role in valuation. Scratches, dullness, and darkened spots on the surface often indicate long-term circulation, environmental exposure, or improper storage. These factors reduce both visual appeal and numismatic grading potential. In professional grading terms, such a coin would typically fall into circulated categories like fine or very fine at best, which are not considered investment-grade conditions. It is also important to note that Jefferson nickel collectors place heavy emphasis on strike quality. Even uncirculated coins can vary widely in value depending on how sharply details are struck. A weak strike can reduce value significantly, while a strong strike with full steps can increase it. But in the case of a worn, circulated 1989D nickel, strike quality becomes less relevant because the wear has already reduced fine details. Despite the low market value, coins like this still hold educational and historical importance. They represent everyday American commerce from the late 20th century and reflect the design consistency of the Jefferson series, which has been in circulation since 1938 for beginners in coin collecting. Examining such coins is a good way to learn grading basics, identify wear patterns, and understand how condition affects value. In conclusion, a circulated 1989D Jefferson nickel with scratches, surface damage, and weak or stepless Monticello details is a very common coin in today's market and typically carries only face value or a minimal premium. Claims of a $58,000 valuation would only apply under extremely rare, certified, and high-grade conditions that are not present in a worn, circulated example. While it may not be a high-value auction piece, it remains a part of American mint history and a useful example for understanding how coin grading and rarity truly determine value in the numismatic world. Next coin, a 1970D. Jefferson nickel is one of those coins that at first glance looks completely ordinary. But in the world of coin collecting, even ordinary coins can sometimes become headline-making pieces when rarity, condition, and unique characteristics come together. This coin was struck at the Denver Mint in very large numbers, meaning billions entered circulation across the United States. Because of that massive production, most 1970D nickels are still extremely common today, especially in circulated condition. When a coin shows heavy wear, scratches, surface damage, hairline marks, and weak or missing step detail on Monticello, it is generally considered a low-grade example with minimal numismatic value. In circulated condition, especially when the coin has fine wear, dull surfaces, and visible imperfections like hairlines or darkened spots, its value usually remains very close to face value. Jefferson nickels in this condition are often found in pocket change, coin rolls, or old collections that were never sorted for quality. The term stepless refers to the Monticello building on the reverse side, where the steps are not clearly visible due to wear or weak strike. This is a very common situation for circulated Jefferson nickels and significantly reduces collector interest. The 1970D issue is not considered a rare date in the Jefferson nickel series. It was part of regular production during a time when the U.S. Mint was producing large quantities of coins to meet everyday circulation demand. Because of this, there is no natural scarcity in the date itself that would drive high value in lower grades. Even well-preserved circulated examples usually remain inexpensive in the market, often valued only slightly above face value unless they have unusual features. However, coin valuation becomes much more interesting when we start discussing condition rarity and special characteristics. Condition rarity refers to coins that survive in extremely high grades with minimal marks, strong luster, and sharp strike quality. For a 1970D Jefferson nickel, coins that are graded mint state, especially MS66, MS67, or higher, with strong strike definition, can carry a premium value. But once a coin is described as circulated with scratches, hairlines, and weak steps, it falls far below that collectible threshold. Hairline marks on a coin typically indicate either cleaning or heavy friction, both of which reduce value in professional grading standards. Collectors prefer original surfaces, not altered or damaged ones. When combined with circulation wear and weak Monticello steps, the coin becomes more of a common collectible rather than a high-value numismatic piece. These characteristics place it in lower grading categories such as fine or very fine, where market demand is very limited. Now, there are rare cases in numismatics where certain coins can reach extremely high auction prices, but those cases always involve extraordinary circumstances. When we talk about a figure like $63,000 for a 1970D Jefferson nickel, this would not apply to a circulated, scratched, stepless example. Such a value would only be possible if the coin were an exceptional, certified specimen, possibly a top population mint state example with full steps designation, combined with extreme rarity or a significant mint error recognized by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC. Mint errors, for example, can dramatically increase a coin's value. If a 1970D nickel had a major error, such as a double die obverse, dramatic off-center strike, or a unique die variety, collectors might pay significant premiums depending on rarity and demand. But even then, the coin would need to be in strong collectible condition. A worn circulated example with heavy damage would not reach high auction levels regardless of date or mint mark. In the standard market, circulated 1970D Jefferson nickels typically trade for only a few cents to perhaps a small premium if they are in attractive condition. Dealers and collectors usually do not assign significant value to damaged or heavily worn examples because supply is extremely abundant. Millions of these coins still exist in circulation and private collections, making them easy to obtain. Another important factor is strike quality. Jefferson nickels are well known for variation in strike strength, especially on the Monticello steps. Strongly struck coins with clear details are more desirable, while weakly struck or worn examples are less attractive. In your described condition, circulated, hairlined, and stepless, the strike quality is essentially overshadowed by wear and surface damage, which limits its collectible appeal. Even though this coin may not carry high monetary value in today's auction market, it still represents an important piece of American mint history. The Jefferson nickel series has been in production since 1938, and each date reflects a part of U.S. economic history. Coins like the 1970D are still studied by collectors and beginners to understand grading, wear patterns, and the importance of preservation. In conclusion, a 1970D Jefferson nickel in circulated condition with scratches, hairlines, weak strike, and stepless Monticello details is considered a common coin in today's numismatic market. Its realistic value remains very low, typically near face value, and it does not approach high auction figures under normal conditions. The claimed $63,000 valuation would only apply in extremely rare and exceptional cases involving top-grade certified specimens or significant mint errors, which are not present in a worn, circulated example. While it may not be a high-value collectible, it still serves as an educational example of how condition and rarity determine true coin value in the collecting world. Next coin. A 1957D Jefferson nickel is part of one of the most widely collected series in American coinage, yet most people overlook it because it was produced in very large numbers for everyday circulation. Struck at the Denver Mint, this coin entered a period when the U.S. economy required massive coin production, meaning millions upon millions of these nickels were released into daily use. Because of this high mintage, most 1957D nickels are extremely common today, especially in circulated condition. When a coin shows heavy scratches, surface damage, hairlines, dull appearance, and weak or missing Monticello steps, it typically falls into the lowest collectible category and carries minimal numismatic value. In heavily circulated condition, especially with noticeable damage and surface issues like scratches and hairlines, a 1957D Jefferson nickel is generally considered a very common coin. The Jefferson nickel series is made from a copper-nickel alloy that is durable, but over decades of circulation, it can develop wear patterns, dark spots, and surface deterioration. These features significantly reduce collector interest. The stepless description refers to the Monticello building on the reverse side, where the steps are either completely worn down or were weakly struck at the mint. This is extremely common in circulated examples and is one of the key grading factors collectors examine when determining value. In standard numismatic markets, a 1957D nickel in fine or lower circulated condition is usually worth only face value or slightly above it. Even in somewhat better circulated grades, the value rarely increases significantly because supply is abundant. Millions of these coins still exist in coin jars, old collections, and circulation finds, making them easy to obtain for collectors and dealers alike. Heavy damage, such as deep scratches or surface abrasions, further reduces any potential premium value because collectors generally avoid coins that have been impaired or improperly handled. Hairline marks on a coin often suggest cleaning or excessive friction, both of which negatively affect grading results. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC assign lower grades to coins with such surface issues because originality and surface integrity are key factors in determining numismatic value. When combined with heavy circulation wear and missing step detail, the coin becomes more of a basic historical artifact rather than a collectible investment piece. However, coin valuation in the collector market is not only based on common condition examples. Rare situations can create extraordinary value differences. For example, certain Jefferson nickels become valuable if they display major mint errors, extremely high-grade preservation, or rare die varieties. These include double dies, off-center strikes, repunched mint marks, or full steps designation in mint state condition. But in the case of a heavily circulated, scratched, stepless 1957D nickel, none of those premium features are present, which keeps its market value very low in standard trade. Now, when we hear claims of a $35,000 value attached to a 1957D Jefferson nickel in damaged circulated condition, it is important to understand how auction pricing actually works. In real numismatic markets, such a value would only be possible if the coin were an exceptional and certified specimen. This would typically mean a near-perfect mint state example with extremely rare characteristics, or a unique mint error that has been verified by major grading companies. A heavily worn and damaged coin does not meet these requirements and therefore cannot realistically achieve such a high valuation. The $35,000 figure would only make sense in a scenario where the coin is something extraordinary, such as a top population full steps MS67 plus example or a one-of-a-kind mint error discovery. Even then, Jefferson nickels reaching that level are extremely rare and usually well documented in auction history. A circulated damaged coin simply does not enter that category regardless of date or mint mark. Strike quality is another important factor in Jefferson nickel valuation. Many coins from the 1950S, including the 1957D issue, were not always sharply struck, which means even uncirculated examples can show weak step details. However, in circulated condition, strike quality becomes less important because wear has already reduced the sharpness of design elements. In your described condition, heavy scratches, hairlines, and stepless Monticello, the coin falls into a very common category where collector demand is extremely low. Despite the low monetary value, coins like this still have educational importance. They help collectors understand grading standards, surface preservation, and how circulation affects long-term condition. The Jefferson Nichols series is widely studied because it offers a clear example of how mint state coins differ dramatically from worn circulation pieces. Beginners often use coins like the 1957D nickel to learn how to identify wear patterns, recognize damage, and understand why certain coins are more valuable than others. In today's market, a heavily circulated and damaged 1957D Jefferson nickel typically remains worth only face value, with little to no premium unless it has a rare mint error or unusual variety. Its condition, scratched surfaces, hairlines, and missing step detail places it firmly in the lowest collectible tier. While the idea of a $35,000 valuation is appealing, it does not reflect real-world auction results for a coin in this condition. In conclusion, a 1957D Jefferson nickel, in heavily circulated, damaged condition with hairlines and stepless Monticello details, is a very common coin with minimal market value. The extreme auction price of $35,000 would only apply under rare, certified, and exceptional conditions that are not present in a worn example. Still, the coin remains a small but meaningful part of U.S. mint history and serves as a useful example for understanding how condition, rarity, and grading standards truly determine value in the world of coin collecting. Next coin. A 1977 Jefferson nickel with no mint mark is one of those coins that often gets overlooked because it looks extremely ordinary at first glance. It was struck at the Philadelphia Mint during a period when the U.S. Mint was producing massive quantities of coins for everyday circulation. Billions of Jefferson nickels were made across this era, so most examples of the 1977 issue are very common and still found today in pocket change, old jars, and circulation rolls. Because of this huge mintage, a normal, circulated 1977 nickel typically carries no significant premium and is usually worth only its face value unless something special is present. When a 1977 no mint mark, Jefferson nickel is described as heavily circulated with scratches, hairlines, dull surfaces, and weak or missing Monticello steps, it falls into the lowest collectible category in numismatics. Coins in this condition have experienced long-term handling, friction, and environmental exposure. Scratches and hairlines often suggest either heavy circulation or improper cleaning, both of which reduce collector appeal. The Monticello steps on the reverse side are one of the most important design features for Jefferson nickels, and when those steps are weak or completely missing due to wear, the coin is considered low-grade and less desirable in the collector market. In standard grading terms, a coin like this would typically fall into fine or very fine condition at best, depending on the remaining detail. Even in those grades, the market value of a 1977 no mint mark nickel remains extremely low. Because these coins were minted in such large numbers, supply far exceeds demand in circulated condition. Most dealers and collectors do not pay more than a few cents above face value unless the coin has a rare variety or mint error. It is also important to understand that hairline marks are often seen as a negative factor in grading. They can indicate cleaning or surface damage, both of which significantly reduce the originality of the coin. Professional grading companies like PCGS and NGC place strong emphasis on original surfaces, luster, and strike quality. When these elements are compromised by scratches, wear, and hairlines, the coin is automatically placed in a lower value range. In your described condition, circulated, heavily scratched, stepless, and hairlined, the coin is firmly in the common category. However, coin collecting always includes exceptions, and that is where valuation becomes interesting. Certain Jefferson nickels can become highly valuable if they exhibit rare mint errors, unusual die varieties, or exceptional preservation. Examples include doubled die obverse varieties, off-center strikes, or dramatic repunched mint marks, even though this issue is a no-mint mark Philadelphia coin. Additionally, coins that survive in extremely high mint state grades with full steps designation can sometimes reach high auction prices due to condition rarity. But these are very specific and rare situations that do not apply to a heavily circulated coin. Now, when discussing a figure like $72,000 for a 1977 no mint mark Jefferson nickel, it is very important to separate typical market reality from exceptional cases. In real auction history, such a price would only be possible under extremely rare and certified conditions. That would require a coin to be a top population mint state specimen, possibly MS-67 or MS-68 with full steps designation, combined with extraordinary eye appeal or a unique and documented mint error. A heavily circulated coin with scratches, hairlines, and step loss does not meet these criteria and cannot realistically achieve that valuation in standard numismatic markets. The 1977 Jefferson nickel series is not considered rare by date. It was produced during a modern era of high coin production, and therefore most surviving examples are common. Collectors usually focus on higher-grade examples or known varieties rather than worn circulation pieces. Even in uncirculated condition, most 1977 nickels are relatively affordable unless they reach top grading levels. Another important factor in coin valuation is strike quality. Jefferson nickels are known for inconsistent strikes, especially on the Monticello steps. However, in a circulated example, strike quality becomes less relevant because wear has already removed fine details. In your described coin, the combination of circulation wear, scratches, and missing steps means the strike detail is no longer a value-driving factor. Despite the low monetary value, coins like this still hold historical and educational importance. They represent everyday American currency from the late 1970s and are often used by new collectors to learn grading basics. By studying worn coins, collectors can better understand how circulation affects surfaces, how design elements fade over time, and how professional grading standards are applied. In today's market, a heavily circulated 1977 no mint mark Jefferson nickel typically remains worth only face value or a very small premium if it has attractive eye appeal despite wear. Without rare errors or exceptional condition, it does not reach high auction levels. The idea of a $72,000 valuation applies only to extraordinary and extremely rare specimens that are certified at the highest levels of numismatic grading, not to a damaged circulated example. In conclusion, a 1977 Jefferson nickel with no mint mark, in heavily circulated, scratched, hairlined, and stepless condition is a very common coin with minimal market value. While it may be interesting as part of U.S. coin history, it does not achieve high auction prices in standard conditions. The $72,000 figure would only apply in rare, top-grade, or error-based scenarios that are completely different from a worn circulation piece. Still, every coin like this plays an important role in understanding how grading, rarity, and condition determine true value in the coin collecting world.